Now, I know I haven't done a 2010 album review in a while, so I kind of wanted to do one for you guys here tonight. That way you can kind of know that I'm still taking a look at the new stuff that's coming out, as opposed to just focusing on discographies that I've been doing lately. And there's, in fact, a band that I have never covered on the Cover Killer or Cover Killer Nation channel that certainly is one of my favorites. It's one of my top 50 on my last FM, and that band is Flotsam and Jetsam. Now, of course, most of you guys will know Flotsam and Jetsam from your Metallica trivia class, knowing that Jason Newstead was on Flotsam's first album, Doomsday for the Deceiver, before he departed from Metallica. Now, the one thing that you may not know is not only did he help co-write some of the tracks that was off their second album, No Place for Disgrace, but they've actually released 8 further albums after that. They're now up to album number 10 here in 2010, and that album is entitled The Cold. It's a 10-track affair, and it's 52 minutes long. And there's one thing I gotta get off of my chest right here, right now. The last couple of releases, that was being My God and Dreams of Death from 2005, not exactly some of the strongest material that you're going to hear from Flotsam and Jetsam's discography. And it's not so much the fact that these songs are particularly weak. It just seems like the songcraft that they were exhibiting during the first couple albums of their career just wasn't as prevalent. And this has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that Eric A.K. no longer does his high, shrill screams that you're used to if you have the early aspects of their discography. Now, it's got nothing to do with that. It just seems like there's a little bit of directionlessness to it. Dreams of Death actually kind of cured this in a way. However, it wasn't completely resolved on this album, because Dreams of Death was a concept album based off of singer Eric A.K.'s nightmares. So you could definitely see them flowing into a new direction, a new school of thought, where a lot of the songs that you're going to be hearing from here on out are going to kind of hit home a little bit. And The Cold actually kind of takes that same little direction. It's not directly a concept album, but it would seem as though that something has happened in the life of Eric A.K. or perhaps someone that he knows that really has inspired this album. The Cold is actually really more of a reflective sense of humanity or a particular person. And you can definitely see this from a lot of the song titles, such as Hypocrite, Take, The Cold, Black Cloud, Better Off Dead, Falling Short, and Secret Life. It definitely seems as though something was going on. There was a little bit of a secret life going on. Maybe someone was out cheating around. Or it seems as though, from what I'm gathering from the lyrics whenever I listen to it, it seems like Eric, or whomever he's speaking of, is giving and giving and giving to a particular person. My guess is probably either a spouse, a girlfriend, or a friend, something like that, and only getting negative response in return, as though nothing that they possibly could, nothing that Eric could possibly do could match up, that there's absolutely no saving the situation, that basically all of his efforts are just a big waste of time. Now, having experienced this myself, this is somewhat of a personal release to me. However, that's not going to keep me from being fair and assessing it properly. I gotta say that I'm still going to be extremely partial to a couple of different albums by Flotsam and Jetsam. Of course, the early material is hands down classic. Doomsday for the Deceiver is one that you have to spin a lot, same with No Place for Disgrace, and also When the Storm Comes Down, the first 3 records. However, A Natural Selection also has a really, personal little bit of a nostalgia for me. That's their 7th album from back in 1999, in that it was the first Flotsam and Jetsam album I ever got, and a couple of friends of mine and I were, we constantly spun this disc for one track and one track alone, and that was, of course, the track Fuckers. It was just such a kind of a fun track. And the funny thing is that if this song was released nowadays, the RIAA or whatever would flag it as parental advisory almost immediately. But back then, I guess there was a little bit more of a grace period, or a grace area, gray area maybe. And so Fuckers was able to be on the album, and the album was sold PA free, as we like to say in the biz. The music, however, on The Cold, I have to say, is very solid. This is the last album with one of their guitar players. They're going to be replacing him. He did depart on friendly terms, so this was not something that was based upon some sort of negativity. It was just time for him to move on, and this is something that's happened a lot during the recent incantation of Flotsam and Jetsam. Well, they'll lose a couple of members for a bit. In fact, they even lost singer Eric A.K. for a while, and he had formed a country group called the A.K. Chorale. However, it was determined after they had assigned a replacement for him that he was the only man that could sing their material, and the best man to sing the material, so he returned to the band very quickly thereafter. The album itself, like I said, is kind of a little bit emotional. It has a very powerful thrash backing, but at the same time, it does kind of take on the new metamorphosis of Flotsam and Jetsam, where it does kind of tone itself down at points, which is a nice little night and day effect. You know, a lot of people may find this to be slightly distracting. However, I really implore you to tell me how you could not have an album like this without the song Better Off Dead, track number 6, which is almost resemblant of a power ballad of some variety. It's actually one of the best songs on the album, and it really stands out. The very first couple of tracks on this record, from Hypocrite to Black Cloud, from 1 to 4, are exceptionally strong. And this is the part that I really enjoy about this record. The start of it definitely is kicking on all cylinders. Black Eye Staring, track number 5, is alright. And the 3 tracks that lead up to Secret Life, which is Falling Short, Always, and KYA, are also halfway decent. However, Secret Life is a great ending for this particular song, for this particular album, should I say. Not to mention the 7 minutes and 3 second time is all used. It's not something that's used to mask a hidden track, as they did with Dreams of Death 5 years ago by putting an acoustic version of the song Bathing in Red at the end of that song. So overall, I mean, I like Flotsam and Jetsam a lot. They're definitely one of those bands that will always be one of my favorites that I'll like to spin a lot. However, this album is going to be a 7 out of 10 and probably will not make the top 20 list for this particular year. It's a solid release. It's not bad. However, it does have a couple of things that can cause some minor complaints. All the tracks are not standout tracks. There are a couple of them that I'll obviously skip over, but that's something that's kind of become a little bit commonplace with their last couple of albums, especially My God. My God's one where I really pick and choose a lot. Of course, I really haven't mentioned a lot about the middle of their discography, from Quattro all the way up to High, and that's because these are albums that are sometimes very difficult to find. However, if you do have the opportunity, check them out. They're good releases. And you know, if you can find The Cold at your local music store, at either an FYE or whatever is close to you, pick it up. It's definitely an album that's worthy of a listen, and it's definitely an album that's worthy of your money. 7 out of 10 doesn't necessarily mean that you should stay away from it. It just means that there's definitely some room for improvement, but almost like with Dreams of Death, they're taking one step further towards the evolution of the next great Flotsam and Jetsam record. Perhaps we'll see with album number 11 something like album number 1 with the Doomsday for the Deceiver. Okay, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but we can always hope.